As a member of Slade, when you look back, what are your proudest moments? What stands out for you?
Your first number one is Strong, because it's an arrival. After all the years that suddenly you're on top of the charts and you're still living with mom and dad, and the neighbours suddenly start looking strange at you, because like you've just been on TV and then you're going back to mom and dad's, And I think I was still going back to mom and dad's after 3 number ones until I found the house. And so therefore, when I wasn't at home, Dad was signing his autograph, for the fans, it's quite funny. And it's a kind of like, you become this like, people are very proud of you locally in the sense like, Wolverhampton or these lads come from here, like the Beatles come from Liverpool. It become a thing that we come from Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
And I stood on top of this shopping mall called the Manda Centre in Wolverhampton, and we were all 4 of us pointing to the sky that we made the top of the charts, So that was a proud moment. I think other proud moments are somewhat different. There were a lot of experiences gig-wise, that there were so many of amazing gigs,
Yeah.
But sometimes it's not just the amazing gigs, it's things that make a difference. Like when we'd had all that success, we then went through a rather rough period when disco made it in the late 70s, and it was all Bee Gees and Grease and all that kind of stuff was going on, and we didn't know where we could ever write another hit record. And I was about to leave the band because I was short of money. And I'd got this Rolls Royce, you see, with Yob 1 on it. And I got this idea. It was like Rent a Pop Star, for a wedding. I got this idea. And yet something really dramatic happened to me when I was about to do it. I had this phone call from Chaz Chandler. And he says, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm just organising the cars now, to do this. I've got to make some money, Chaz, I said, it's tough. I didn't write hits, you see, so it was hard on me. And I've got children. So I thought, well, one needs most. You've got to do some of the dance, So I'm not sitting on my backside at all. Well, Chaz said, well, there's an opportunity come up. He said, I really would love you to do it. He said, because after you've done it, go ahead and do your Rolls Royce business. I said, okay, so what is it? He said, I want you to go on to Reading Festival.
Oh, yeah.
Reading Festival. He said, there's going to be about 40 or 50,000 people there. Right. And Chaz said, well, I think, you've been asked to do it because Ozzy Osbourne has pulled out and he won't do it. And that means they're asking if you'd be interested to do it.
Yeah.
And Chaz said, I think it'd be the best thing you could ever do because you have got more hit records than all the bands put together on that show. And I was going, oh, they won't like us, we haven't been in the charts for years. And he said, Dave, he says, he's a Geordie. He said, Dave, he says, way, man. He said, you've got the experience live and, you've got it. So I said, well, what the heck, I'm not going to fight this one. So I went and did it. It was remarkable. I went on a stage and we went down an absolute storm. No one knew we were on the bill. As soon as we started, that was it. And I was looking at Chaz, he was grinning his head off. And we came off stage, and about 2 months later, we had a hit record. Wow. And we started another run of hits into the 80s, of big hits for us. And I could have taken the wrong turn before that if I'd have said no to it.
Yeah.
But it seems like that's happened to me more than once. When there's something that in your life which is undeniably right. When I reformed the band, it was undeniably right that I'd do that. Because of the places I've been to in the last 25 years that I didn't go to before, such as Russia, a lot of the Scandinavian countries, Australia, places like that. These are the places that heard our music, and especially Russians, very fanatical about us.
Yeah.
And I suddenly found myself playing to thousands of people where back home people probably thought you'd retired.
Yeah.
That it wasn't like that. I said, you won't believe how many people I've played to.
Wow.
It's almost like doing the O2 Arena several times.
Wow.
And it's phenomenal. And it can only be to do with a longevity of good songs.
Yes.
And something that was so strong. Because Chaz always believed that people were looking for the next Beatles, but he always thought we were the next Beatles, but in Slade, you know. And I think we could have gone on, but of course, we split up towards the end of the 80s, which I write about in the book.
Yeah.
And Nod asked me to write about the split, so talk about what it was like. And Nod went through a bad divorce and was quite unhappy and couldn't cope with being on stage in front of the public when he was unhappy inside, and I understood that. I really did. And unfortunately, it dissipated, and Nod eventually took an interest in something else. I didn't want him to go, but he had to. He had to go for himself. And then the bass player left, and it left me and Don, like how it was in the beginning, me and Don. So I said, we'll reform it, and we had a phone call from Susie Quattro's husband, Len, who was in her band. He just divorced, actually, but and he managed me, and he took me back on the road.
Yeah.
He says, we've got to do this. He says, you're David Slade, you'll never do anything else. That's what you do. And he was absolutely right. And I think the focus point was a bit like the Reading Festival. Something was happening at a time when it was needed. And a lot of my life's been a bit like that. And now I'm sort of a granddad of 5 grandkids, and little bits of music going on with them all. It's but they're joyous seeing them. Even when I had the stroke, and I came back home feeling, I wonder what's going to happen to me. And I came back home and them shouting "Grandad" at you. It's such an elation of feeling, of how we are as humans to respond to something like that and sort of build on it. And so I'm kind of, when I'm away sometimes, I've always got to come back home and see them, because it's just that part of your extension to your life, isn't it? The grandkids take on your future. And writing this book, I wanted to also reflect upon the poetry I love, like Wordsworth and things like that, things which have been a help to me during difficult times, and talk about those sort of things in a deeper sense, not just about a guy who wore glitter, which I did, and still I don't do now, but I wanted to talk about things which I thought had happened to me, which would make a far better read. I mean, I think the book's a little bit like a script to a movie, but I told the stories. I didn't make anything up. And there's some really funny things in there that happened to me as well, Because, I mean, living next door to 500 girls was a bit hilarious. What it was, they used to be in my garden smoking fags and, trying to keep the sight of me. And then the headmaster said, "Don't you bother him, he's got a private life, And he's number 1 in the charts," and they're screaming at you when you come out of your house. Yes, I must tell you, I lasted a while there, then moved. I didn't know I bought a house next door to a girl's school. It was those days when you're a pop star and the agent says, "Oh, come down this road, it's real nice in Solihull." "Oh yeah, it's really pretty, isn't it?" I said, "Be a bit different from the council house." He said, "It certainly is different from the council house. There's a nice house here for sale, Dave." And I went to the door with this agent, and the woman goes, "Hello." She's quite posh. She said, "Oh, hello. You look familiar." She looks at me, "Oh, you look very familiar." Anyway, I went in the house, and he's showing us around. And I went in the bedroom. There's my picture on the wall.
Wow.
It was a daughter. She got my picture on the wall. I think that clarified that I bought the house. You've got to tell it to him. You've got a picture on the wall. And I've had some funny incidents there as well, with fans getting in and sleeping in the treehouse. And I mean, they're the funny things, because my life is funny as well as it's a bit tragic with Mum, but I just wanted to tell that story because it was hard living with it sometimes when your mom doesn't become your mom anymore.
Yeah.
And when she died, it was almost like she died years and years before. Before she died, I didn't even cry when she died. And it's always been a hard one to, and maybe some other people might relate to that story.